Hi, Dayton Mayor Jeff Mims, and welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight with Mayor Jeff Mims. Here I have with me my special guest. Of course, you know that all my guests are special. Judge Walter H. Rice. So before we go any further, what does H stand for?
It stands for Herbert.
Herbert.
But that's a secret that we'll embargo.
Okay, so much. I really appreciate you. You know, it is really special. Of course, I've seen you and interacted with you, been a partner with you, and so many other things in the past. Your love, your commitment for the city of Dayton, and of course, clearly the surrounding areas. Your attachment to some things like even going back to the DCA case and things that are happening as far as the city of Dayton, and as well as looking at some of the challenging situations that you're involved in. Dialogue on race, other type of situations in terms of you're consistently being involved, even something as soft as the looking for money to build a statue of Paul Laurence Dunbar at the West Dayton Library that we have right there on 35 and Abbey Street. But before I get started in that, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where'd you come from? What caused you to land here in Dayton? And how have you enjoyed it thus far?
Well, Mayor, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm not a native Daytonian.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, where I picked up a lifelong addiction to any sports team with the name Pittsburgh.
Okay, so you're a Steelers fan, like myself. I don't know how I got to be that.
Steelers, Pirates, Penguins, you name it.
Okay.
I've been here well over 60 years, and I wasn't intending to settle in Dayton. I was going to remain just until I was able to take the bar exam.
Okay.
And the bags are still packed. I fell in love with this community, and that's simply grown over the years. We have a community that is full of wonderful people doing wonderful things. The only regret I have is that often they don't speak with each other and collaborate in what they do. But Dayton is large enough to have some major big city problems, yet small enough to get our arms around those problems.
Okay. So as we look right now, a lot of the great things that's happening in Dayton in terms of more and more investments coming into Dayton, a lot coming downtown, which seems to be probably more obvious in terms of building things like the arcade, the whole refurbishing of that space. And because of that, we go back, look, even before that, we had the baseball stadium some 25 plus years ago, and how that has been such a foundational piece to bringing more and more investments into the city of Dayton, more and more entertainment, and looking at, again, going back with the whole Levitt Center, looking at how we use ARPA funds and interviewing at least probably about 5,000 or maybe 1,000 people in the city of Dayton to find out how they want us to spend that $138 million. That's been very beneficial for us. And then following their lead, if you will, by virtue of that. And with those kind of things that are happening, recovering from COVID, and before that recovering from the redlining, before that recovering from the Howe leading the nation in terms of a foreclosure crisis, or Howe leading the nation in terms of job loss, or Howe leading the nation, if you're on a very sad category, African American graduation rates, African American male graduation rates, or the dropout of African American males in those spaces. How do we come together and put something together that is almost like an outgrowth or reflection of the challenges that we've had, that one could categorize almost as trauma, poorness, if you will, when you start looking at those type of situations, housing challenges that we have, and people with predatory lending. How do we look at that, and how do you see and categorize that as a contributing factor to some of the violence issues that we have as far as the city is concerned, and our ability and desire to try to address that?
Well, I think one is inescapably the result of the other. In a community, if there's no hope or very little hope, particularly among the younger people
Okay.
in that community, the community really is ill-equipped to deal with these problems. What I particularly like about the Peace Initiative is that instead of a group of well-meaning men and women sitting around a table deciding what is best for others who are absent, this program is going to be a community-wide effort. It's going to speak to the people who are aggrieved by the trauma, by the racism, and by the violence. And together, everyone in this community is going to develop a plan that makes this community the best it can be. I mentioned earlier that we are full of wonderful people in this community doing wonderful things. I wish they spoke to each other more. I wish they collaborated more. And I think the design of this Peace Initiative is going to remedy that problem. Trauma, racism, violence, these are all community-wide problems that can only be solved by the community, by people working together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, now for those who are watching, you know why I asked him to be my co-chair.
Well,
Okay?
That's my honor, Mayor.
Okay, no, I definitely appreciate that. Let's go back. I'm not sure if it's 30 years, maybe 35 or so, the Dayton Dialogue on Race.
Yes.
Your involvement in that space and that whole project. And I was happy to be asked to be involved in that as well, to help be one of the individuals who help identify and train and listen to people talk about some of the kinds of things that were affecting them, that caused them to maybe not see race relations as a potential resolution, and how the resolution of that, even the improvement, because you're probably never going to solve all of that, but even how we go through the process of making sure that we increase the awareness that race is an issue, and that just gradual adjustments or sometimes immediate adjustments or immediate awareness can cause better opportunities as far as quality of life may be for the citizens who live in Dayton. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not sure they can go back with a year, but
Well, the Dayton Dialogue is almost 30 years of age. And it was birthed in Dayton by Commissioner Dean Lovelace and former County Commissioner Sarah Harris. And I was fortunate that I became involved at a very early point. The theory of the dialogue is this. We have gotten to be able to work together, to live together, to go to school together. But what has never changed is the fact that we don't really understand each other. We don't know each other. And the reason we don't know each other is because we don't really know, other than perhaps intellectually, other people's life's experiences.
right.
I've never lived the African American experience. My African American friends and colleagues have never lived my white middle class background. We need to know, and dialogue is the only way to do this. We need to know each other's experiences because we are all a product of our life's experiences. Those experiences shape our perspectives. And if we understand our experiences and each other's perspectives, we know not only where someone's coming from, but why.
Why?
And if we know the why of a person's perspectives, there is absolutely no problem that we cannot solve by working together. The dialogue is more than talk, Mayor. It's talk supported by action at the end of the dialogue. Words tend to vanish in the air, but words coupled with an action plan to deal with, to work together on community issues, cement the lessons of the dialogue. And we desperately need this in this committee. The good news, and the timing is everything, this coming Thursday, NCCJ, which has taken over the Dayton Dialogue but kept the name,
Okay.
will be holding the first dialogue, the first Dayton Dialogue, to be offered in a half dozen years in this community.
Okay.
The need still exists, and I believe the dialogues will continue to exist and hopefully will solve the problem in this community that every community issue seemingly is evaluated through the prism of race. Doesn't need to happen. I think the dialogue, I think the peace campaign, bringing together everyone in the community
Right.
will make this less
Yeah.
of a racial bastion.
You know, and I think when I listen to you talk about that, clearly there's a connect. And one of the reasons I thought about your being involved right now as a co-chair of this piece is because there's so many similarities about how we address the concerns, especially from the community engagement piece, that their understanding connected with the race issue, their understanding connected with the poverty issue, their understanding connected with the whole issue in terms of how we look at the employment issue of more and more of the citizens that we have in Dayton, and how they look at the trauma that's associated with people who are involved with race and disparities associated with that. How those things are so connected. And then I look at, even again, going back to, you're talking about 30 years ago, even going back to the 90s, if you will, but before that in the early 70s when this city, this community was fighting with desegregation. And how this was another part of that, even though they didn't call it dialogue on race, but it was like, how do we help people get into conversation? The reasoning or the rationale behind busing was like to put people from different backgrounds in a common space and let them function going about their normal activities of education. And because of that work, they will begin to understand a better set of opportunities that contribute to things that are roadblocking their educational progress as well as their social progress as well. So from your thoughts, if we were to connect some of those kinds of things, talk about some of the kind of similarities that you see in that process.
Well, I'm not one who will tell you that I thought busing was unsuccessful.
Right.
I think it had successes, and that is all of us in the Dayton Public Schools had no choice but to get to attempt to know each other. I don't think it went as far as it could have or should have, but I think it began the process, the long process, which is still ongoing,
Yeah.
of helping us get to understand and to know each other. This is still a racially divided and segregated community. I think it would be far more so if it weren't for the fact that we had busing for all of those years, in spite of what many people point out as the collateral consequences of busing. Segregation didn't arrive overnight. Why should we be shocked that the vestiges of segregation haven't been cured overnight?
Yeah. You know, as a young teacher, actually, my first year of teaching, we were in the process of dealing with some of the desegregation issues. And for 3 years, a program called the Science Centers, where we had 4 different centers where young people were purposely mixed, if you will, by having two predominantly white schools and two predominantly black schools, go to each one of those four centers for a total of 16 days on the course of the year. Now, of course, you say 16 days, that's very little time compared to what they need to do in the course of their lifetime. And as you mentioned, being a teacher in those spaces and also being a union leader, we were challenged to work collectively, strongly with the Board of Education and the community, because they provided a lot of resources in those spaces for us to create the best conditions for our young people. While the court ruled in 76, after that 3-year program that started in 73, the court ruled, the federal court, that was insufficient because it didn't totally address the needs, as you mentioned, that need to be addressed as far as our young people were concerned. And so they mandated the system-wide desegregation in 1976. But what we found was that the prelude of that program with 5th, 6th, and 7th graders and 8th graders did actually serve as a nice off-ramp, if you will, of saying a better foundation with young people so that when they got to the high school, where you normally have the bigger challenges, the bigger blow-ups, we had approximately 75 to 80% of the young people who are in high school now who had that easier experience at a non-threatening time. And it worked a lot better for the Dayton community than it had in other communities across the nation.
Mayor, I believe that without question, and as proof positive, with even considering the racial divide that still exists in this community, the younger generations are not as, the only expression I can think of is hung up over racial issues.
Right.
They're far more understanding. They think people of our generation focus on racial issues far more than is necessary or advisable.
Yep.
And those changes took a while to occur, but the younger generations, people 40, 45 and under, give us a lot of hope for the future as far as working together, knowing each other, and solving issues together.
Yeah, makes a big difference, a real big difference. As I go back, I want to talk about the Peace Initiative.
Please.
And why you chose to be involved with that, and maybe some of the similarities. We talked about some of the similarities already, but the hope that we have as far as Dayton, how do you see the situation, even though we have data from other cities that have been engaging with this whole peace initiative from Cure Violence Global, which is the international organization that has been working on this for more than 30 years. Why we see hope in Dayton, and what do you think that hope will provide for Dayton?
I see a reason for hope in Dayton in what I said at the beginning. We're large enough to have big city problems, small enough to get our arms around those problems and to resolve them. I see hope because I occasionally, on a weekly basis the last few years, go into elementary or middle school classrooms, and I see young people who are potential superstars, literally. Sharp as tacks. And what they lack, however, would be horizons. They're not certain because many of them have not been told or shown what their potential is and what that potential could bring them, whether it's post-secondary education, the military, trades, and the like. So we have a ready, supply's the wrong word, a ready number of people who can be exposed to what their potential can bring them, that can make this city of tomorrow
Okay.
seem like the city that we all hearken back to. The good old days that really weren't that good when you consider it. So I see a tremendous amount of help and hope on the way. I particularly like the way the Peace Initiative is involving the schools and focusing on the young people in our community, which is something you've done as long as I've known you, and I'm certain before.
You know, I think I totally agree with you as far as that whole connection is concerned. Because as we look at that piece, if you want to create the best conditions for our young people to make that transition into a positive, contributing adult in our community or in society as a whole, oftentimes I know educators are so overwhelmed by the assessment called test scores, and they forget the purpose of test scores is to be diagnostic. Let's find out where you are in relationship to you're having those skills to be successful in life, and then let's give you the resources to put you in a position where we can improve those conditions that you need to have to be that contributing adult as far as society is concerned. And way too often, school districts like Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Akron, those cities that have a history of lack of resources, if you will. So the lack of those resources citywide create conditions where the quality of life indicators are not as high. Those quality of life indicators like safety, jobs, careers, healthcare, recreation, entertainment, those things, again, are not as prevalent as they are in more affluent communities. And we're being challenged often to have and produce high quality contributing citizens without those. And that to me I've always felt to be unfair.
I think it is unfair, and to judge Dayton public school children who haven't had these advantages and exposure to what they could become and how they can live a fruitful, contributing life, to compare those students with students who simply have more opportunities to have considered different options in life is blatantly unfair. You're comparing apples and oranges. And Mayor, I refuse to believe that people who attend inner city schools are not capable of achieving. I simply do not believe that, and I never will. And by bringing the school system into the Peace Initiative, I think what you're trying to do is to equalize opportunities. The major issue threatening this country today is inequality of opportunity. And what we need to strive for is to bring every 18-year-old up to the starting line with an equal opportunity to succeed. Whether that child succeeds or not is based on a work ethic, character, and 100 other things. But they deserve an equal opportunity to succeed in life.
Well, I know we got about 2 minutes left, and I know this time will fly by. But I do want to say, as we talk about this whole issue again, the big hopes, the big dreams that we have, is and how we make this whole thing a lifelong effort, not just an effort for the next year, the next 2 years, or 3 or 4 or 5, but a lifelong effort. Boston has been working in this space for about 30 years in terms of being one of the most peaceful cities in the world. I do recall when Boston had some really serious challenges.
Yes.
As far as race was concerned, those things also create a whole lot of drama. They create a whole lot of violence in terms of people shooting and experiences associated with that. And I want to see us in a situation here in the city of Dayton where we look at what we have. We look at the opportunities. I'm going to put an S on that. ES, if you will, for those English majors. Okay, to look at the kind of things that we have been able to create in Dayton, and people understand those better than they did before we had this conversation and shared this conversation. Because I don't think there's ever going to be an absolute understanding of everything that we do, but we check in with the citizens on a regular basis to let them know about our progress. And from that, get more and more involvement from citizens to help us move this whole big wheel along, so everybody begins to put their shoulder on this wheel and push at the same time in the same direction. How's that sound?
It sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful, and my hope is that this program becomes a permanent part of the culture of this community, so that the efforts will long survive us, and progress will be continual. The important thing is not only to advise the citizens of what we accomplish, but to let the community know that it's average citizens. It's not just people with big titles that are making these pronouncements, but that everyone in the community has and is playing a role in the success of the initiative.
Now I'm going to say that we've probably made a record or finished this at record time compared to what people thought we would be able to do, because they said that both of us probably could do 2 hours to wall with no one else in the room independently.
Don't tempt me.
Right,
Don't
we'll tell them that. But for us to be able to finish this by only going 2 minutes over, I think it's a record for us. So we got to come back. We got to come back because there are a lot of things that clearly I wanted to say that we didn't get a chance to say. But we will do that in the next time we have this opportunity to talk about the updates. I know Sarah Hockenbrock with the Greater Dayton Hospital Association. They are, of course, a partner organization with the city. And they have now received, I know, at least one of the responses to the RFP for an organization that wants to be involved in this process. So they'll be going through checking the qualifications for that. If we need to open it up more, we will. But we know that we're moving in the right direction for someone who has already met the timeline as far as helping Dayton move through this process. So again, thank you for watching. Certainly thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, and we'll be back, I'm sure. And thank you for watching another edition of In the Spotlight with Dayton Mayor Jeff Mims. Have a great day.